Hello and welcome back to the Football Heritage podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bryce, and today I'm joined, first of all, by Brock Mildon.
Hello.
Thanks very much for coming back on, mate. Not too keen on the hello, right enough, being a Celtic fan, but hello to you. Thanks very much for coming back on. How have things been?
Good. Just, watching the football, so, yeah.
Good man. And we're also delighted to be joined by Tonga international Maikeli Lomu. Maikeli, thank you very much for coming on the show. How have things been with you?
Thanks. Things have been really good.
Good. Yeah, thanks very much for joining us on the show today. Today we are going to be talking about, I suppose, a few things. Mainly Maikeli's career representing Tonga is going to be the focal point of it, but more so his story of how he came to be represented in the recent World Cup qualifiers as well. And, just a kind of wider story here to be told about nations like Tonga, some smaller nations as well, who are really reaching out to members of the diaspora and members of the community whose ancestry and heritage lies within these smaller nations to try and, get a sort of larger player pool to come and represent them. But just before we kick things off properly, Brock, first of all, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Brock. I love football. I grew up here in the U.S., in Utah, just playing most American sports here, football, basketball, baseball. And it wasn't really until I lived for a time in Germany and I just kind of fell in love with football, with the beautiful game. And I've just been following it ever since. In the last few years, I've just been doing a lot of research and following grassroots here in Utah, local lower division teams and clubs here in Utah, and just trying to spread the word that there are big clubs in the U.S., but there's also smaller grassroots clubs that need help and support and following. So that's mainly what I've been doing recently.
Brilliant. And of course, some of our listeners might also remember you from the Danes Cup episode that we done way back in March. I think that was now March or April. It was a while ago. Really brilliant episode. Again, really capturing that essence of grassroots football within Utah and a really good insight into the history of football and the development of football, or soccer, I should say, in Utah also. Maikeli, your turn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Utah as well. I grew up playing soccer. When I was a kid, I would play soccer at recess at school, and some of my friends, they just invited me to come play on the club team, and that's kind of how I got started playing football, soccer. I grew up, went through high school, did a little bit in college, and then I stopped playing after college, but then recently just joined the Tonga international team. So and I'm living here currently in Tonga for the present time. I may move back to the US in a couple months. We're not really sure, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story, and the story that you've kind of embarked on recently, the journey that you've been on, has been really, really fascinating for a few reasons, of course. On this podcast, we try and really, I suppose, talk about all of the different aspects of football that people might not really notice. So, just for example, why someone who was born and raised in England might end up representing Scotland, for example. We call it the granny rule, because their grandparents were Scottish, for example, and you can qualify through that. So yeah. I'm guessing it's sort of similar for yourself and other players similar to yourself, where they can qualify for Tonga or Vanuatu or other smaller island nations through their heritage. But there's kind of been this sort of larger push between smaller nations recently to really try and tap into their diaspora and try and reach players who they might not even know themselves can actually qualify for the nation, to try and increase their player pool and have a real go at the sort of World Cup qualifiers and that kind of thing, which has been brilliant. Of course, you said yourself that you are from Utah, you were born and raised there. Did you play at a professional level, or was it, kind of amateur or semi-pro to begin with?
Yeah, no professional level. Like I said, I did a little bit in college, and then it was just all amateur, all amateur after that. So
yeah, nice one. Yeah, just for the love of the game type thing.
Yeah,
Brock, did you ever see any of Maikeli's teams play, actually, just to begin with? Because obviously it was yourself that got in touch with me, first of all, to kind of make me aware of this story. So did you actually see Maikeli play at all? Obviously, you're a big lover of grassroots football in Utah.
I don't think I have. I mean, possibly. But I really just kind of heard of Maikeli's story recently, the last few months. I've just kind of been following his story since then. So, yeah, I'm not sure on that. I don't think so.
Okay. No, it was just something that I was curious about. Of course, I suppose your story was brought to a lot of people's attention because you actually moved from Utah out to Tonga because they effectively asked you to play for them. Was it something that came out of the blue, or was it something that you were aware of, in terms of the interest before they actually came to ask you, or was it something that was a bit of a surprise to you initially?
Yeah, it was completely out of the blue. I didn't know Tongans played soccer, to be completely honest, because in Utah, they even the Tongans in Utah and kind of everywhere, they only play rugby and like American football in Utah.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much the only Tongan that I knew that played soccer growing up, and so I actually came to the island 5 years ago, and I saw soccer fields, and I was like, "What? Like there's enough Tongans here that play soccer that we actually have fields here." And so I was completely surprised that we even had teams that played here on the island. And so after that, nothing really came about that. Like I said, that was 5 years ago. But then a year ago, I actually found the Tonga football Facebook page, and I followed them. And so I was getting like a lot of news from that Facebook page. And a couple of months ago, like back in June, they posted that they were looking for international players. And so I sent in my resume, just told them like my history with the game and what I've done, sent them some videos. They said to come on out. And so I did.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it's really great actually, and you're right as well. Of course, Tonga, like a lot of Pacific Island nations, huge on rugby, massive on rugby. I'm not big on rugby myself, but it's teams that always come up against Scotland, play against each other and things like that. Huge rugby nations, and you don't always associate soccer with them because whenever they play in the different associative qualifiers that they're a part of, it's always a case that they never really make it very far, and there's this kind of perception that a lot of the island nations are always fodder, which is a real shame. But, from what you've said there, just being able to send your resume in to basically apply for this position to play for is something that's quite unique, and it's something that I quite like. And I think it's something that's actually going to do quite a lot of these nations well in the long term. Were there any other players within the camp that you'd met who had done the same, basically sent their resume in off the back of this Facebook post?
There was 4 other players that were from New Zealand, 2 of which have played with Tonga before. The other 2 hadn't. So I know that there was at least 3 of us. There was another guy from the U.S., I think it was John Nichols, something like that. Brock, do you remember his name? He plays for the San Jose Earthquakes development program. He's a goalkeeper, and so he has Tongan heritage, and he was supposed to come out here, but he didn't end up coming for whatever reason. I'm not sure.
So you found it pretty easy to gel in then, knowing that there was a couple other people who'd done something kind of similar.
Yeah, definitely. I was here for 6 weeks before the camp, and so I was the only international player that was here for pretty much the majority of our World Cup preparations. And then at the camp, those 4 other guys from New Zealand came. But yeah, everyone really accepted me. I was taken onto the team very well. A lot of them speak a good amount of English. A couple of them don't, and I haven't really talked to them, but that's okay. But the majority of the players and the whole coaching staff, they all speak English, and so there's not even a communication barrier for me.
Yeah, I need to ask. I've been dying to ask you since we've been arranging this episode because obviously you're living a lot of people's dreams. You're playing for your national team. What does that feel like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a dream come true. Just wearing the badge and being there when the FIFA anthem was playing on the World Cup qualifiers, I started to cry because it was just such a beautiful experience. You watch the World Cup and you see all the amazing players that we all grew up watching, and they're walking out and the FIFA anthem's playing. I got to do that too, and so yeah, just a dream come true. And I couldn't have even a year ago, 6 months ago, I couldn't have even imagined that I'd have a chance to even do something like that. So
Yeah, no, it must have been absolutely incredible. As I said, living a lot of people's dreams. It's something that myself and Brock probably dreamed of doing, but of course we're well past it. Well, I can speak for myself anyway. I don't know about Brock, but yeah, no, it must have been absolutely magnificent. So, I mean, you said yourself there, it's not something that you ever imagined yourself doing. So, if you don't mind me asking, when you were growing up and you were playing, I mean, did you ever consider that you might get the call up? Did it ever cross your mind that this opportunity might arise, or was it always something that was always, kind of at the back of your mind, or something that was a dream, or did you ever think that it actually might become reality at some point?
No, even when I was growing up and like having the aspirations to play professional soccer, it never occurred to me that like Tonga might even have a national team. Like I said, I found out 5 years ago that they even played soccer here, and so it never occurred to me that I'd even have a chance. 5 years ago, when I saw the soccer fields, I was like, oh man, like I wonder if they have like a national team. That'd be really cool to come here and represent the country. That'd be a really big dream. But yeah, it never really occurred to me.
Brilliant. No, genuinely, that's amazing. I mean, to be fair, I was looking up the Tonga Major League earlier on, just for a kind of bit of extra research just before we came on. And of course, as far as I'm led to believe, the entire league is still amateur level, if not maybe a couple of teams semi-professional here and there. And I think it's the same with a lot of island nations that these leagues are, played for the love of the game or just at semi-pro level. Isolation is a huge thing because of it. Obviously, logistics in terms of playing each other. So it must be quite difficult to organise these tournaments and to actually get people to play for the teams. You've got a very, very limited pool of players that you can actually pick from. So obviously, then the World Cup campaign comes up, and Brock, you watched these World Cup qualifiers pretty closely through the entire thing, didn't you? I think I don't know. It's interesting because there's sort of two sides to this, where some people thought that Tonga might have been a bit of a dark horse, whereas other people didn't actually give them much of a chance. And in the end, it was pretty heartbreaking how Tonga ended up being disqualified. But you gave a very, very good account of yourselves.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were the lowest ranked team in Oceania. The Cook Islands and both of American Samoa and Samoa, I don't even think that they gave us like a second thought of being the one that won that tournament. And so when we played the Cooks, they were completely honestly. After the game, when we beat the Cooks, like they almost looked like embarrassed because of like they lost to us. Beforehand, at one of the trainings leading up to the game, one of their managers came up to our team manager and he was like, "Hey, like, nice to meet you. Like, did you guys bring your real team? Like, why'd you bring your development team?" And so they were talking a lot of smack, even like leading up to the game. And then yeah, we beat them, and yeah, you could tell they were definitely crushed because they expected to come into the tournament and to win the entire thing, because that's, I don't know, they were one of the favorites going into it. But yeah, to be beaten by the lowest ranked team, it was definitely like a punch to the throat. And then yeah, we put a really good game against Samoa. We pushed them. We scored first and pushed them all the way to the, like, I think 80 or 90th minute, when they eventually tied it up. But like, yeah, I definitely think we surprised everybody. I don't know that anyone thought that we would be a dark horse. Like that's news to me for sure. I thought that we were definitely the very well known underdog. No one really thought that we would even be competitive whatsoever.
And you've almost managed to do it as well, and it's a shame that I'm not sitting here saying that you did manage to do it, because it was very, very close in the end, and you've ran it very, very tight. Brock, what was your experience of watching the qualifiers? Because as I said, obviously you were watching back in Utah and you paid quite close attention to this tournament. What was the feeling like with yourself, but also how was it watching this kind of great run from Tonga happening in front of you?
Yeah, I was just really excited, especially, just with like the connection to Utah for Maikeli. And so just kind of supporting from Utah. It was cool to watch. And it was really exciting that they won their first game being, ranked so low. And it was a little bit of a surprise. And I thought, maybe they could carry that into the next match, and they came close. It's just exciting to see these smaller nations, these island nations, beginning to compete. Recently San Marino won for the first time in years, Anguilla won for the first time in years on the same day. So it's just really cool to see these nations start to develop more and to get better. And then we have like Marshall Islands that have been doing a lot recently, and Micronesia, they've been doing a lot. It was really cool though to see Tonga, to watch them. Most of the games like from Oceania are on FIFA Plus for free, so anyone can log on, anyone can watch. I think a lot of people will say with the expanded World Cup that it's a negative. The quality is going to go down. There's going to be more games, more teams, more player fatigue. But for these smaller nations, I think it's a great opportunity. Just because, correct me if I'm wrong, but before, Oceania didn't have an automatic spot into the World Cup, right? They had to go into the playoff. But now they have one automatic, and then another one, I believe, goes into the playoff. So with this expanded World Cup, it's giving a lot of these smaller nations more of a chance to compete and show, the pride of their nation. So I think it's great.
I totally agree with you. It gives us more of a chance as well. We're hopeless. You saw our performance at the Euros. It was absolutely terrible. I totally agree with you, Brock. I think... a lot of the people who use the argument that the expanded format is going to bring the quality down, I don't want to say they're not football fans, but I mean, come on, like, what are you saying? Like, why don't you want smaller nations and more teams to be involved in these tournaments? Do you know what I mean? It's such a brilliant experience, and if you're able to actually go to the tournament and experience it yourself, it's a mixing of different cultures. You're meeting different people, you're meeting fans of different nations. It's just such a great event. I don't understand why you wouldn't want smaller nations to be involved in World Cups as well. And it's good for them as well. There is some kind of financial gain. You're getting to show yourself on the biggest tournament in the world. So, I do think, as much as FIFA and UEFA, especially in Europe, gets a lot of flack for these expanded formats and it being, kind of money motivated, I do think it is ultimately a good thing for smaller teams as well, and there can be a lot of benefit for it too. In terms of the national team at the moment, Maikeli, and I suppose kind of maybe looking at the youth development side of things and what I mentioned earlier about really tapping into the diaspora, is there going to be a larger shift, do you think, towards Tonga trying to maybe not so much develop an academy on the island? Maybe they probably have already got that actually, but trying to speak to youth across the world who are part of the diaspora to try and get them to come and train, if not in the country, but maybe overseas as well, and try and, I suppose, maybe represent Tonga at a younger age than they already are.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. They don't have an academy here. That's one of the things that they're trying to get started on the island. I'm trying to hopefully convince them to let me go back to the U.S., back to places like Utah and California to try and even just recruit kids that fall into that they can come and represent their country and train with that in mind. Because when I was younger, like I said, I didn't even have like any idea that Tonga even played soccer, and so if you told 16-year-old Maikeli that I could be playing for Tonga's national team, I probably would have taken my training a lot more seriously, and I definitely would have been taking that opportunity like by the reins and just taking it all the way, because it's just such a cool experience just to even be a part of. And so I definitely hope so that's the direction that they're wanting to go. I'm willing to go back to the US and try and round up some kids, because I know that there's actually quite a few kids that would fall under that rule and that they would be able to play for Tonga, and that they would be excited to too.
Mm-hmm. So is it a similar type of situation where it's a grandparent rule then, or is it a little bit more stricter or looser than that?
Yes, so I don't know like the details of it. My dad is from Tonga. He was born here. I know there's one guy that was born in Australia that they've been trying to get to come play for him, because he plays second division professional soccer in Thailand. They're having a hard time getting his passport done, because I think, like, I don't know, like I said, I don't know the details completely, but from my understanding, you just need a passport to be able to participate in the games. And so to qualify for a Tongan passport, you just need a parent or grandparent that was born here in Tonga. I think that's probably why that Australian kid is having a hard time with his passport. Like, his mother must have been born in Australia too, or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But there's plenty of first generation immigrants in Utah and California that have Tongan heritage, that have Tongan parents that would easily qualify for a passport to be able to play for Tonga.
Yeah. Well, that's actually what I was going to ask next. Is there quite a large pool of players within diaspora for Tonga to pull from at different levels of the game in the US and further afield as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's a girl that played college football in Utah, and she just recently signed a pro contract in the NWSL or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think her name's like Leveni Vaca. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. There's there were twin sisters, Leveni Vaca and Daviana Vaca, and they're both from Utah. But same thing, I think their parents are from Tonga, and they both played college soccer at BYU. And now one of them has signed a contract to play for a team in the USL Super League, which is like second division for women's soccer.
Yeah, so she's qualified, and then I'm pretty sure they have even like younger sisters that are playing or something like that. I know there's quite a few like girls for sure that are playing in Utah that could qualify to play for Tonga.
But that's brilliant, though. I love stories like that as well. You kind of touched on it just a moment ago, and you said, you've asked them if you can go back to the US so that you can try and, I suppose, maybe not drum up some interest, but speak to some kids and let them know that there is opportunities there available for them if they, wanted to continue to train harder and maybe pursue soccer as a full-time career. I'm guessing that yourself and other players then, maybe more so than other associations throughout the world, have another role within the association as well in terms of going out to maybe find and speak to these players and be role models for them and show them that this is actually a possibility for them.
Yeah, definitely. I hope that I get that opportunity. And even if I don't, like on my Instagram, I've drummed up a lot of interest, and I've had a handful of players that are like, dude, I'm Tongan. Like, I didn't even know that this was a thing. Like, can I... What are the odds that I can come and play with you guys? And so
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so, and even back home in Utah, I have family members that have cousins or kids that play soccer, and they're like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea. Like, let me know. Like, how do we get in touch with these guys? Like, I want this. I want the same kind of journey for my kid. She's 14 and loves soccer, and she's everything about soccer, and she wants to come and play too. And so it's definitely something that I'm looking into, that I'm going to try and tap into for them.
Maybe a future career for yourself in the association as well, if all things go well. I'm guessing then the other island nations are also trying to do something like this. As I said, there has been a bit of a wider push towards doing it. So I'm guessing it's something that a lot of smaller nations are actually trying to tap into in terms of, kind of getting with their diaspora. I don't know if you had maybe experienced anything like it when you came up against the other teams that you played in the qualifiers, or just through speaking to players for instance, the Marshall Islands or anyone else.
I don't know entirely the other countries. I didn't talk to them much, but I do know that a lot of them do tap into that role and use players that are from overseas. I know Samoa, they only had 2 players on the field that started in the game that grew up in Samoa, and so the other 9 players were from overseas, Australia and New Zealand mainly. That's been like the heritage that they've tapped into the most. Definitely is from Australia and New Zealand, but anyone from the US or any other parts of the world, that I don't think anyone really knows that there's an opportunity, and I think that applies for pretty much all of the island nations. They have kids that are everywhere around the world, but none of them really know that there's that opportunity.
Yeah, and what an opportunity it would be for them as well, to be able to go back and even some of them might not have even been able to visit before. So if that's presented to them, then it could lead to something that's really great. And then you get into other things like having academies spread out around the world and that kind of thing. So all very long term and all very ambitious, but that certainly seems to be the way that it's going. I suppose just my final question about the association. I suppose I wanted to ask, what do you see the future for Tonga being after these qualifiers? You gave a good account of yourselves. When the next qualifiers come up, do you think you can do the same? Do you think there's maybe even a shot of getting to the World Cup next time? I just wanted to know your thoughts, and should you be called up, how you think your chances are going to be when the next round of qualifiers comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I have 4 years now until the next World Cup qualifiers, and that's a lot more time than I had this go around. I only had like 6 weeks, but to prepare for this, and so I'm going to be working a lot harder than I was. I have a lot more time to work hard, and I've already started getting prepared and exercising a lot more than I was the last 4 years. I do think that the association is definitely in a better place now than it was even a month ago. Before we had even been tested the way that we were in the qualifiers. I do think there's a lighter, almost like environment at the association. People are more excited about soccer here now because of the results that we put on at the qualifiers. And so I've been trying to work closely with the association to hopefully drum up a little bit more excitement. I know they've had a program going that's been monitored by OFC directly, called the Just Play program for kids, and so they've been trying to develop kids for the last, I think, like 10 or 13 years. But just last year, TFA, the Football Association, they made a talent development program themselves. The captain of the senior team, Hema Polovili, he's the president of that program, and so I know that they're definitely working towards building that academy and trying to focus kids on football itself, because a lot of the kids, they grow up here playing rugby and they're very athletic, and then a lot of them we can kind of push over and get them to come play soccer a little bit, but they always try and go back and play rugby. But I know in the village that the Football Association is located in, pretty much everyone there, they don't even play rugby anymore. They only play soccer because of how much they love the game. And there's a couple villages like around the island and even on other islands around Tonga that love football because it's safer. A lot of the parents even are trying to push their kids to play football rather than rugby just for that reason alone. And so I do think that the future of football in Tonga is definitely looking a lot brighter than it has been in even recent history.
I suppose not to kind of try and make it, I suppose, simple, but when you've got a massive rugby culture, you've already got kids who are going to be so athletic, and so sporty, and you've already got a template there to then go and push them towards soccer, and then try something new. So it's there, and it does sound like it's very, very promising. I was actually going to ask you, since the qualifiers have kind of will obviously come to an end, what's the training regime been like for you? Have you been giving yourself a bit of a break, or have you just been trying to keep up your fitness? And actually, other thing that I wanted to ask, this is a question in two parts. Have you actually been playing for any clubs in Tonga while you've been staying over there?
Yeah, so I took about a week off, and then I started training again, mostly just by myself. I do play for a club, Veitongo FC. It's where the Football Association is. That's the village that's like soccer crazy. So everyone there plays football, and so I'm playing with them. We've played, I think, 3 games since we've been back, and I've scored 2 goals. It's been a lot of fun, just being in the football culture in Tonga. It's really fun. It's definitely unique, especially before the qualifiers. There was a high school tournament on the island where all the high schools brought their teams, and they all played. But one of my favorite things about Tonga and Tonga football culture in general is whenever someone would mess up, like they'd whiff a kick or someone would push somebody over, the whole sideline, everybody would just start laughing. and it was really weird at first because that doesn't really happen back in Utah. But no. You whip a kick or you miss a shot, everyone starts laughing at you. It's hilarious, and it's one of my favorite things here on the island.
That's a nice little nuance. It sounds really chill, and it just sounds like, as you said, it's good fun. Do you know what I mean? And you're out there, you're scoring, you're playing. What more can you ask for? You're playing international football. What more could you want? Do you know what I mean? It sounds absolutely brilliant. Brock, in terms of Maikeli's story, obviously being from Utah, how has this influenced the perception of football or soccer in Tonga? In Utah, in and around where you're from? Is it something that a lot of people have been following quite closely because he's from Utah? I was just curious what the feeling in Utah is surrounding Tonga because of Maikeli and his journey there.
Yeah, I would say his like, at least in my circles where I'm, associated with a lot of soccer people, I feel like his story has been told. It's been picked up by media outlets, by news outlets, and I think that's really cool. I think it's been picked up because of both reasons. He's from Utah, but also, like he mentioned earlier, there's a lot of Tongan people here, a lot of Tongan, ancestry in Utah in general. There's just a lot of Polynesian people that have emigrated here. And so because of that, I think a lot of people have really gotten on board. I have seen that his story has been, accepted. It's been followed more than before. And I mean, that's how I found it, just being a soccer fan here. And I found his story. And just like in my neighborhood alone, there's a handful of Tongan people, 5-6 families just in my neighborhood here. So there's a lot of Polynesians and Tongans specifically here in this area. So I think because of that, his story's really been picked up, and I think that will help Tonga to grow as a football nation. I mean, they won their first game in qualifying, which was awesome, and I think that's only going to continue to improve as his story gets out, and as people see, like, hey, I have Tongan ancestry, maybe I could play for them. So I think they will begin to improve and get better. So.
No, from what I've heard tonight, I totally agree with you both. Again, it's just about nurturing that talent that's there. It's about these people knowing that the opportunity exists and that they can do it too. And I suppose that's part of what being a role model is all about at the end of the day, isn't it? Maikeli, if Tonga were to make it to the World Cup, what would your dream fixture be? Say, for example, you guys are opening the entire tournament. Who would your dream fixture be against?
I'd be terrified no matter who the opponent was. But if I had to pick, I mean, I'd love to be on the field with Messi. Like, Argentina would be a dream.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
But that's pretty unrealistic because, that's like 6 years away. And so he's probably going to be long retired. So, I mean, if I had to pick anyone else that'll probably be around, I don't know, maybe like England. Like I follow a lot of the guys that are English, and they have a lot of young talent that's that I've been following pretty closely, and so I'd probably England.
Brilliant. No, that it was just I was quite curious about that. Everyone's always got, in fact, no, everyone has the same answer. It's always Messi.
Yeah,
and to be fair, I would be the exactly the same. Why wouldn't you? That's always going to be the go-to.
Yep.
So you said at the start of the episode that you're obviously going to be asking to, hopefully get back to the US to speak to some people soon. Of course, you did more or less move your entire life from the US over to Tonga so that you were able to play for them. Uh-huh. Is your plan to move between the two places, or are you going to go back home and maybe settle down for a bit again and then come back over? Just wanted to know what your plan was in that regard, because it can be a lot moving around so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as of right now, we're probably going to just move back and settle in. We have some family that lives in Texas, and so we were planning on just going back to Texas and living with some family for a minute until we can find like an apartment or a house. But then I do think we'll probably look into spending our summers, like Northern Hemisphere summers, in Tonga, just to escape the heat. Honestly, it's really hot in Texas, and it feels really good. Like during the summer months in Tonga, it's winter here, but it's a cool 70 degrees. Nothing's, I guess, maybe 19 degrees, somewhere around there, 19, 20 degrees for you. But yeah, we're just going to settle down there and plan on coming back to Tonga every year or so, probably about once a year.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and I think it's good that obviously you're planning to stay close to it as well, because this entire journey and this entire experience must have changed your life. It's the gravity of it. I can't really put into words. Genuinely, a life-changing opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah, it's definitely changed my life. I've been getting a lot more opportunities because of it. I mean, coming out here wasn't necessarily a gamble. It was definitely almost like a fulfillment of a dream, and just trying to be a part of something, a part of like the heritage that I have. I did actually, I grew up in Utah, and there is a lot of Tongans there. I went to like a Tongan church even, and so my Tongan heritage has been very important to me. And so being able to connect with that and coming back to the island and learning, like we were learning how to weave and learning how to like different like farming techniques out here and stuff like that. Even outside of football, it's been one of the one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had, for sure.
I mean, what's your plans for the future in terms of a player? Are you gonna, obviously, you've been playing a couple of games for a club in Tonga. When you go back to the US, are you gonna continue playing? Are you gonna seek to play? Are you gonna move more into, I don't know if scouting would be the right word, but suppose, kind of nourishing this kind of academy element that you were talking about, and then maybe playing when you're back in Tonga? What's your plans as a player moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely planning on playing. I know there's some really good amateur leagues out in Houston, Texas, and so I'm planning on playing just with one of those amateur teams. Hopefully, keep my training up and maybe move up to some better teams. I don't know what the future holds for me. I am going to try and continue recruiting, even if the Football Association doesn't hire me. I'm planning on just trying to do my own like social media content, just trying to find other players to come play with me. I was talking with the CEO of the Football Association a couple of weeks ago, and one thing that he said to me, because my wife asked him when he stopped playing, and he was like, "Oh, here in Tonga, we don't stop playing until we grow old." And so
Nice.
even the head coach of the senior men's team, he was playing club with me last week. He came in for the last couple minutes, and so in Tonga and even in Beitongo, that village that we play for, yeah, all the old men even come out and play a few games every once in a while, because I don't know, they just the football culture here is you just never stop playing. You just keep playing till you can't.
I love that. It's a great mindset to have. I remember there's a team over in Scotland called Clyde who were managed by a manager called Danny Lennon a few years ago, and he subbed himself on during a game because of there was player illnesses. I think he was 53 at the time or something. He was the most immobile midfielder that you've ever saw. He was completely useless, just like spraying passes all over the place but not really moving. So it's like, that's our perception of it. It's like when you get past the age of, I don't know, 38, 39, then that's you, unless you're like an athlete or something playing in La Liga and stuff like that. So to hear that there's a proper culture of like, you don't stop playing until you can't anymore, it's brilliant. I love it. And it is just playing because you love football, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Another episode that we done was with a guy called Stevie Leshik, who is the founder and the president of the Soccer Federation of Appalachia. So they're kind of like a Cascadia type association where they're non-FIFA. And their aim is to be a football federation where players who consider themselves Appalachian can be called up for it. So, it's not necessarily nationalistic, but it's like if you're from this defined region of Appalachia with this kind of distinct identity that Appalachian people have, then you can qualify for them basically and try out for them. And I just wondered, obviously, with them, the Tonga has its own national team, so it kind of not makes it redundant, but that's the be all and end all, and that's where you'd want to be playing. But just for example, if the Tongan diaspora wanted to get more behind this, could you see something like that becoming popular in other parts of the world where they had, I suppose, Tongan representative teams, but not necessarily playing for the national team? Or do you think? And I think if I were in your shoes, then I would probably prefer people coming over to the national team. But obviously, that might not always be a possibility. Sure. Do you think that could be something that's maybe a kind of outlet for them, I suppose, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, possibly. That honestly, that's a really good idea, because there's so many Tongans in California and Utah, and just kind of like the Western United States. I do think that could be a possibility of doing something like that, at least in the U.S. and definitely in Australia too. I was talking to a guy in Samoa, and he was from Australia, and he was saying that in the not in the, I think it's like the A League, the top league in Australia, but in the lower tier divisions, there is a lot of cultural teams where there's an Italian club in Australia, there's a German club, there's an English club where people of English heritage come together and they form the club, and they all play against each other. And he was saying that those games are almost more entertaining and more fun to go to than the A League in Australia because of just how passionate the players and all the fans are, because it's surrounded by their culture. It's not necessarily just the geographical thing where they're purchasing players, but it's like their cousins and their brothers, and everyone's just coming together and playing football. And that, honestly, that's what like football's about. So something like that in the U.S. would be really cool to see for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose as long as you're representing, and the thing is though, is it's like diaspora teams, I suppose, if you want to call them that, are brilliant because more often than not, you're in another country representing your heritage, but it's with people who are part of your community as well, and I think that's something that's really special. It's something that, you know, if we go back into football history, that gave a lot of people hope, but it's also intercommunal as well and stuff, and you know, that's an episode for another time, definitely, but I agree with you that it is very special. So I mean, you never know, maybe there could be a kind of Tongan representative association, but based in Australia, for example. You need to be Tongan to play for them, but they play over there, or even just at club level as well. So, you know, it's good to know that is a possibility for other people as well to use that kind of outlet. And I suppose that's probably the place, or the club, sorry, that the association is going to be looking for players to call up from.
Yeah, definitely. It would be a very good outlet, for the federation to be able to pull from, for sure.
Yeah. Guys, this has been a great chat tonight. Maikeli, thank you very much for coming on. We're kind of tuning in from 3 different time zones at the moment, so it's 9 as well. It's nearly 10 p.m. where I am. It's about 6 p.m. where Brock is, and I think it's about 10 a.m. where Maikeli is. So
yep.
We've really woken him up to get him on for this episode, and we really, really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you guys want to add just before we finish up for tonight?
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated the time. I love doing podcasts because it's a lot more chill than doing just like a 15-minute interview. So I definitely really appreciate the opportunity being on here. If you are interested in my story, just go ahead and follow me on Instagram. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And we'll put the links to your Instagram and all your other social medias on the show notes for this and on our X page as well once it goes out. Brock, anything else you want to add or ask Maikeli just before we finish up?
Yeah, I would just like to finish and say, like, those that are listening, support your local clubs, you know, wherever that may be, local, smaller nations if you're somewhere there. But like I said at the beginning, local clubs need your help. They need your support because of, you know, Maikeli's support for Tonga. Their national team is growing and it's getting bigger and it's getting better. And because of his dream to play for their national team, I think it's going to start bringing in a lot more players for Tonga specifically, but for these other nations as well. So soccer is soccer, football is football, grassroots or the Premier League. So I would just encourage you all to support wherever you are.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Supporting grassroots, supporting local teams and teams with even national teams that are that have more locality around them, such as Tonga or such as smaller nations, is incredibly important as well. But guys, thank you very much for coming on tonight. To all of our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in once again. If there's a topic that you want us to cover, then you can contact us on X. Just DM us. It's @_footballheritage, or you can email us at hello@footballheritage.co.uk. Please also check out our website, just footballheritage.co.uk, where all of our fantastic written content goes up from all of our contributors. There's some really, really good stuff going up there right now. We're open to discussing anything related to football history and heritage, whether that's place, diaspora elements, ancestry, lost clubs, former stadiums, whatever. If there's something you want to discuss with us, just get in touch. We'll have a chat with you and we'll see if it's something that we can fit in with the project. But for now, Maikeli, say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks. See you guys.
Brock, say goodbye.
Yep, goodbye.
It's goodbye from me as well. We'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.